Well, joining me now is Democratic Congressman Eugene Vindman. He's a member of the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
So first, on the basics of this, is a strike on survivors, as described in the September boat strike, is that a war crime?
Look, I think there are a couple of takeaways here. Is that the White House, the Department of Defense can't get their story straight, and so anything. My personal opinion is that anything you hear from the administration and the Department of Defense should be treated with extreme skepticism. And the second thing is that we should be treating this as a criminal investigation. And so, as a former prosecutor, a JAG prosecutor, law and war advisor, including in Iraq and in the White House, what I'm hearing right now raises some pretty serious alarm bells and should be investigated as a crime.
Let me ask you this, because the attention to Admiral Bradley is new. And it's interesting because at first there were denials, straight up denials that this took place. And then they said, well, actually, it did take place, but the order came from Admiral Bradley, not Hegseth, and not crucially the president. Do you see an attempt here potentially to throw Bradley under the bus?
Look, if I were Admiral Bradley, I would be looking around for a bus because something's about to smack him. I had a conversation with senior officials at the Department of Defense, including uniform officials, when these strikes were first reported, even before they provided a briefing to Congress about these strikes in particular. And I warned those officials that I am very concerned about the prospect that a U.S. uniformed service member and senior U.S. officials, civilian officials, may be held accountable for committing war crimes. And this is something between murder, because I want to take a step back. This rationale that the president is saying these are designated narco-terrorist organizations, that is not a pretext to actually engage in armed conflict. So it's somewhere between a murder and war crimes, because a double tap strike, if it is true that it was executed as described, that would be a violation of the law of armed conflict, war crimes, because you cannot attack either wounded or stranded sailors or folks that are not in combat, and certainly not without providing them quarter.
As you know, the question of the possibility of refusing to follow illegal orders raised by 6 sitting lawmakers, some of whom you serve with, and several of whom are veterans. In your view, given that you served in uniform but also in a legal capacity, is this an order that a service member could at least be justified in refusing to follow?
Yes, simply. In fact, according to the Uniform Code of Military Justice, a uniformed service member is obligated to disobey an order like this. Otherwise, they find themselves in the position where potentially Admiral Bradley and other uniformed service members may find themselves in coming days where they are the ones that are held accountable for violation of the law of war. And obviously, the order coming from the secretary who had ultimate authority to authorize these strikes, he's also held accountable, can be held accountable as well.
You co-sponsored the No Unauthorized Force in Venezuela Act, which essentially prohibits the executive from spending any federal funds on the use of military force inside of Venezuela. The administration, of course, is claiming not just legal authority to carry out these strikes on these drug boats, but also conceivably, if the president were to order it, to carry out military attacks on Venezuela. Explain why, in your view, that's against the law.
Oh, because right now we're obviously involved in a campaign. This is not a one-off strike. It's not based on self-defense. It's not based on really typical Article 2 criteria, the president's inherent authority as the commander-in-chief, chief executive. This is now a military campaign, certainly under war powers. The president should be coming to Congress for an authorization to use military force. And also under the Constitution, Congress is the body that declares war. And so I disagree very strongly with what this administration is doing with these strikes. And it looks like they're about to double down on their inappropriate, likely illegal conduct. And they're driving not only themselves, but this country into a direction where we're going to be considered a global pariah for engaging in war crimes and aggressive war. Things that we've accused Russia of in the past, of things we've accused of terrorist organizations like Hamas in the past.
Let me ask you this, though, because the president has had this enormous force massed off the coast of Venezuela for some time, I believe more than the fifth of the largest navy in the world, but has not yet pulled the trigger, at least for military action inside Venezuela, and has acknowledged that he's speaking to the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. You served in President Trump's first administration. Do you believe that President Trump is actually going to order military strikes on Venezuela? Do you believe that he's simply hoping that the show of force does the job for him?
Well, I hope that this is a negotiating tactic and applying pressure, turning the screws on Nicolas Maduro. Obviously, not going to be an apologist for his regime that has caused suffering to millions of Venezuelans and people throughout Central and South America. But to go in and attack and engage in aggressive conflict with Venezuela, certainly without a UN Security Council resolution or authorization from Congress, would be very inappropriate and for a very thin justification, which they're using. I mean, this president, on the one hand, if you think about it, he wants to pardon a leader of Honduras, a leader accused of being a drug smuggler, facilitating drugs into the United States. And here he wants to attack Maduro for the very same thing. Make it make sense.
Congressman Eugene Vindman, always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Jim.